Hello again everyone, my name is Marcel and today we're going to talk about how to prepare for a competition like the Explorer's Geography Bee. Now, really quickly before I get into it, this video will be discussing things to know and how to prepare specifically for the Explorer's Geography Bee, which is a team competition. From what I can tell, this kind of competition is unique to the Miami, Florida area, which is the area where I'm from and where the competition is based. But if you're from out of town, don't click away just yet. If you're interested in bringing a team competition to your hometown, reach out to me using the link in the bio. Most of these tips are also applicable to the Nat Geo Bee or the International Geography Bee. Let's dive in. Let's start with the basics. Each team is composed of 5 members. They will select one member to be the captain, who's the spokesperson for their team. They are the only ones allowed to deliver an answer, and they often facilitate team discussion. I won't get too in-depth into the rules and regulations in this video, but here's a few tips and tactics to make sure your team walks in on competition day knowing their stuff. If most of your team members are pretty new to geography, start by reviewing the 50 states and capitals if you don't already know them. From there, look into US landmarks and dive deeper into each US state. While the questions are pretty evenly distributed, take a deeper look into states like California, Texas, and Florida, as they will tend to have more questions about them than some of the other states. Make sure you keep track of bodies of water in each state as well, as often you'll get a question about a river that either runs through a city or creates a state border or something of that nature. If you're a little bit more advanced, look into the national parks in each state. There are, at the time of filming, 62 national parks in the US and over 400 areas protected by the US National Park Service. While you're not likely to get a question about each one, you should at least know the major ones, as questions do tend to pop up about them. Also, look into the US territories. There are 5 of them right now, and in the Explorer's Geography Bee, there is at least one question about each. I would focus most of my attention in the territories on Puerto Rico, Guam, and the United States Virgin Islands, but don't forget to know at least the basics about the Northern Mariana Islands and American Samoa. Regardless of your level, I would advise dividing up the states by region. How you draw the lines is up to you, but I would follow the general guidelines of Southeast, Northeast, Midwest, West, and Southwest. Since about 20% of the questioning has to do with the US, that leaves about 80% to the rest of the world. At a minimum, you should know which countries are on which continent, as well as their capitals. After that, take a look at some of the major world landmarks, both physical and man-made. Speaking of physical, take a look at major world rivers and mountain ranges. With the exceptions of Australia, South America, and Antarctica, I would advise knowing at least 5 major rivers per continent. Know the 7 summits and the lowest point on each continent, and get familiar with your global superlatives. To help you out, I will be posting an article on them once this video has been released. For the more advanced geographers, get familiar with your Canadian provinces and the Australian states, and which major cities are in each. Get to know some major world cities and major cities in each country. Be familiar with the major world players, like Canada, Mexico, Brazil, India, China, France, Germany, Spain, Russia, the United Kingdom, and other countries of that nature. As they are the big guys on the world stage, there will naturally be more questions on them. Look into global bodies of water as well. There are many seas in the Mediterranean and in Southeast Asia, and they'll often come up as hints in a question. This sounds pretty daunting, I know. My advice would be to assign a continent to each team member, joining the Americas and Australia, so North and South America into one group and Australia and Antarctica into another, to give everyone a continent. That way, there's an expert on each continent that you can refer to when a question about said continent arises. So, you've mastered how to study for a bee. Now, how about answering questions? The good news is that GeoBee questions are meant to test your knowledge, not to trick you. 95% of the time, the question is straightforward and will present with exactly what you need to know. However, from time to time, a question may be padded by what I like to call fluff. Fluff is just what it sounds like. Unnecessary facts that precede the actual meat of the question. The bad part about fluff is that it can confuse you, as it's done to me on multiple occasions, and the only real way to get good at answering a question with fluff is to practice. I'll show you now how to analyze a question with fluff and how to answer it. This is a question that would have been entering the Explorer's Geo Bee repertoire this year had we been able to have it, and it has a good amount of fluff on it. The Rafflesia is the world's largest flower. It was originally discovered in the late 1700s by French explorer Louis Deschamps in the jungles of which island, now the world's most populous, and home to the capital of the world's most populous Muslim country. So yeah, this is a pretty long question. Let's break it down. Firstly, you don't need to know that the Rafflesia is the world's largest flower. I mean, sure, it's cool, but it's unnecessary for the question. You can just ignore that. It also doesn't matter too much who discovered it, although sometimes it may help. In this case, however, it doesn't. So now you're just left with jungles of which island, now the world's most populous and home to the capital of the world's most populous Muslim country. The fact that the question mentions jungles should help, as now you can narrow it down to equatorial and tropical islands, as they tend to have jungles on them. Now for the meat. The question says that this is now the world's most populous island, which is really what it's asking. You should know that which island is the world's most populous, but in case you're still a bit confused, the question gives one more hint. Home to the capital of the world's most populous Muslim country. You should know that the world's most populous Muslim country is Indonesia, and that its capital is Jakarta. Now the question essentially reads, on what island is Jakarta? The answer, of course, is Java. As you get questions like this, you'll start to see how you can narrow down the options using clues and hints, and what parts of the questions can trip you up and confuse you. This applies to questions at all levels, at all competitions, as while these long questions aren't uncommon, they certainly aren't rare. Speaking of questions, let's talk about resources. My favorite resources are the Geography Bee 1001 Questions to Help You Win Again and Again, and Geography Bee Simplified. I'll put the links to get these books below. They're filled to the brim with questions that, if not featured at the EGB, will provide context or hints for some that are. Say you don't want to invest in resources just yet, though. A simple atlas does the job just fine, and we are so fortunate to literally have the world at our fingertips. One of my favorite things to do is to peruse Google Maps and Google Earth and see the world from the comfort of my couch. This, of course, isn't a substitute for actually going there, but for studying purposes, it gets the job done. I would also invest in a wall map. Besides being great decorations, they'll give you a visual and help you see the places you're studying and learning about. YouTube and the internet also do a great job of providing questions, answers, and facts that will assist in giving you the information you need. And now for some words of wisdom. Preparing for a Geography Bee is hard. Even after having studied geography for 14 years and prepared for competition for about 10, I still get questions wrong, and I still have things to learn. But stick with it. Even 20 to 30 minutes a day helps. I would also advise that you practice with your team to get a rhythm going amongst you. Don't get discouraged if you or your team have a rough outing. It happens. As long as you stay confident and have fun, you'll do great. That does it for today's video. If you have any more questions, please drop them in the comments down below or reach out to me using the link in the bio. I'm Marcel van Hemert. Remember to keep exploring your world.